Well, good evening and welcome to Kopernik Observatory. I have to say, I see one person that I don't recognize here today, so it means we got some of our regulars here, which is great. For that one person I don't recognize, my name is Drew Desker. I'm the director here at Kopernik, and it's great to have you here. Also, it's great to have those watching on our live stream. And if you are watching on the live stream, when you have any questions, make sure to put that in the chat. And then at the end of the presentation, when it's the Q&A time, we will endeavor to get that question to you. So since we've got all of our regulars here, it's including some regulars that very often are on our YouTube chat. So it's nice to see Stacy and the whole family here. Good to see you. Good to see you. Well, again, we're all about expanding our knowledge on a wide range of topics. Again, as an observatory, we're one of the better ones here in the Northeast, but we do more than just talk about the sky. Although in this case, we're talking about what's coming out of the sky this evening. And we're just very fortunate to have a National Weather Service station right here in Binghamton, up near the airport. And so this evening we have Mark Pellerito, the storm warning. I'll let you explain your title, and Brian Greenblatt, both from the Weather Service, going to talk to us about that snowstorm back in 2020. I was here for that, but it particularly affected me because about 3 or 4 days later after that snowstorm, there was a very specific astronomical event that we needed to cover. And it was the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. At the end of December, Saturn and Jupiter were like right next to each other, so that at least to the naked eye, they would look like one really, really bright star. And we were planning on doing a live stream observing session with that, like we do now with many of our special events, because we got the technology now to do that. So my wife and I came up, and we had to scrape all those 40 inches of snow off of our dome, and it took us a while. But then, and of course, the day of the conjunction, it was cloudy. Fortunately, Jeremy was smart, and he actually took some video a day or so before that. But even so, I believe we had somewhere upwards of 4,000 people. About 4,000 people tuning in to our YouTube channel. And again, for those that are sort of new to our YouTube channel, back in May of this year, there was that lunar eclipse, and we had at one point 25,000 people on the YouTube channel. Just 2 days ago, we were on for the launch of the Artemis rocket that is now 3/4 of the way to the moon as of this evening. And so we're really developing a nice crowd. It's also, again, it's great to see some people that we see on the chat here, but it's also great that we have people coming back. So anyway, I'm going to stop yammering, and we're going to get to our presentation tonight. And then afterwards, the skies are actually clearing. So if you're in the area, and come on up, because we have some outstanding skies tonight to have you look through our scopes. So with that, Mark, we're going to hand this right back over to you and let you take it.
Thank you very much, Drew. Hi, I'm Mark Pellerito, Warning Coordination Meteorologist over at the Weather Service in Binghamton. I got Brian here as well. We're going to be jointly doing this presentation. Of course, we'll be talking about the big old storm that we had back in December 2020, which was a real treat. And my daughter over there, who doesn't want me to point her out, she had a good time there too, just jumping off the trampoline, and landing in all that snow. It was such a good time. But yeah, it was memorable, and I know for some people it was actually pretty hard. As a meteorologist, of course, we were all like, wow. But as Brian will tell you, his side of the story, it was a lot of work, for sure. All right, let's see if I can get this thing to work.
Here on the The wrong clicker.
Oh, thank you, sir. I don't know what I just turned on with that thing. Okay. Well, anywho. Okay. Overview. We're going to be looking at the storm. Brian's going to show you all sorts of, the snowfall maps, some satellites, some radar, and this being a very science-oriented audience, we might actually get into the weeds just a little bit on the meteorology of all of it. And then we're going to look ahead and for the seasonal outlook for this winter. Spoiler alert, we don't know what's going to happen. But there's data behind that. Trust me. La Nina, what that means, and why it matters to us, because we are going to be in a La Nina winter again. Looking at the past, present, and future to determine, what the data points to for this winter. And then finally, we're going to review some ways that you guys can get information from the National Weather Service to see what is coming on a play-by-play, whether it's, say, lake effect snow in Buffalo or what have you. And then just some quick winter weather safety tips. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton off to Brian, who's going to tell you about the storm.
All right, thanks, Mark. So, yes, my name is Brian Greenblatt. I am a meteorologist here at the National Weather Service, Binghamton, New York. I've been here about 4.5 years. Just a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Long Island. So, is there feedback on the? Okay, cool. So I'm originally from Long Island, so originally from downstate New York. So plenty of blizzards and snowstorms I've experienced, just not to this extent of the 40-inch snowstorm. But and I've been here about 4.5 years, and I'm looking forward to presenting a little bit about my experiences from the 40-inch snowstorm and a little bit of the science behind it as well. So here are some pictures. We have lots of pictures in this presentation. A lot of them were taken by myself at the office, and then I believe these were taken by Mark on this slide. So there's Mark.
For some reason, my dog wouldn't go outside that morning. Tried to encourage him, but.
Slide out of the way.
And yeah, I swear those are 5 cars. 3 of them are in our driveway, and 2 of them in the neighbors. That's the way it looked that morning, and that was my backyard.
So, lots of snow. So just to start out with the satellite loop, a good thing it's actually working. So this is just a loop of the storm developing. So as you can see, it kind of goes up the coast and develops as a classic comma head signature. A lot of these classic nor'easters, you get more of a comma head shape. I'll let it loop around one more time. So you have a piece of energy that kind of develops off the coast and kind of explodes, and you have more of a comma-like feature. And the west side of the storm is the colder side of the storm, so that's when you're going to see more of the snow. And here's just a radar composite loop, and you'll notice some of the yellows, which are the heavier snow bands. Let me see if this laser works. It does. Cool. So right through northern tier of Pennsylvania and the southern tier of New York, we had a heavier snow band develop. Let it loop through one more time. So you can see right over here, and it just kind of stalls and pivots over the same area. So that's when we were getting the 5 to 6 inch per hour snowfall rates, which is pretty incredible. Just an overview of what actually happened. So many of you know, if we're from the area, close to 40 inches of snow fell across much of the area. We measured exactly 40 inches at the office. There are many other measurements, around 40 or so, 30 to 40 inches of snow. There was kind of a wide swath here of 30 to 40, really from north central Pennsylvania through the southern tier of New York and into the Catskills and then to the capital region of New York. Notice, and actually I think there's a graphic in the next slide or two of a little bit closer, but you can kind of see the sharp gradient. So we have 40 inches of snow here, but look near Syracuse, about 3 to 4 inches of snow. So that's a pretty classic signature for a lot of these storms, pretty sharp gradients. You have drier air that wraps in, and that's why it's a little bit more difficult from a forecasting perspective, forecasting exactly where that heavier snow band is going to develop. Just a few stats here. The highest measurement was in Newark Valley, just west of Binghamton, about 44 inches. New Hampshire also had a record there. And then 40 inches at the airport again. Our snow depth at 7 a.m. was 39 inches, and that broke the record from the blizzard of '93. And then Williamsport also had a record, and then Albany, 8th largest snowstorm on record, 4th largest in the month of December. That's also what made this a little bit more unique. This was a pretty early season storm. A lot of our classic big storms happen later on in the winter, January and February. Yes, this is the graphic I was looking for.
And spoiler alert, do you guys remember the epilogue to this storm? We were like, oh, guaranteed white Christmas, right? Christmas morning we had flooding. It all liquefied.
That was another interesting aspect of this storm that we're not going to cover too much in this presentation, but it's actually pretty interesting. We went from 40 inches to about 1 inch in just about a week. So that, of course, caused some problems with the rivers and everything like that. Fortunately, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. If we melted all of it, that would have been a lot worse. So again, about 30 to 40 inches of snow fell across the northern tier of Pennsylvania, southern tier of New York, well into the Catskills. And again, look at the drastic gradient here, where you have about 3 inches in Syracuse and even about a foot or so in the Poconos and the Catskills. So what makes a winter storm? There are 3 main ingredients. So of course you need cold air. Without the cold air, it's probably going to be just rain. You need moisture, and you also need lift. And lift refers to a mechanism to let the air rise. That can be a cold front, a warm front, mountain ranges. And basically you have the rising air cools, condenses, and forms precipitation. And of course you need moisture as well. So sources of cold air. It comes from the Arctic a lot of times. So you really want to see the high pressure system located kind of northwest of our area across southern Canada. Around high pressure, winds blow clockwise, and therefore you're going to have more of a northerly component to the wind and colder air filtering into the region. And you also have colder sinking air. And then moisture. We have, even though we're inland, we do have plenty of sources of moisture. Of course, the Great Lakes with lake effect, and that's what's happening right now with the Buffalo area and across a lot of the Great Lakes with a major lake effect snowstorm there. But we are close enough to the Great Lakes to get lake effect snow and also get lake enhancement with a lot of these systems. Believe it or not, the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean provide plenty of moisture for these storms. A lot of these storms will form across the Rockies, dip south into the Gulf of Mexico, pick up some moisture, and then go right up the coast. And that's what kind of happened with this event as well. I mentioned this before, those sources of lift. So it can be a cold front, it can be a warm front, it can be a mountain range. Lake effect, this is big right now, or especially early in the season, where you have a large temperature difference between the Great Lakes and the air temperature. We're right now in a cold air mass, and the Great Lakes are relatively warm. Therefore, you're getting a lot of lake effect snow. You don't actually have to get lake effect snow over the Great Lakes. Believe it or not, the Finger Lakes are close enough, and if the wind direction is perfect enough, it can actually cause some lake effect snow right off the Finger Lakes. So we have seen that as well. And then, of course, mountains. So nor'easters, just think of it as a strong low pressure system where the winds predominantly come from the northeast. That's actually what it's named for, nor'easter, northeast. So it's named for the direction where it's coming from. The key here is the track of the storm. Ideally for our region, we want to have the storm kind of track right along the coast. And when that happens, you have the colder air. Remember I said before, the high pressure to the north filters in colder air. You have the colder air on the west side of the storm, and you get a little bit more of a wintry scenario. Closer to the center of the storm, and especially east of the storm, you have warmer air that moves in. So when you're east of the storm, usually these storms are more of a rainmaker or maybe a mixed precip type of event. Growing up on Long Island, I always wanted to see this low pressure kind of out here, and the bigger snowstorms would be along the coast. And those type of storms, we actually get very little snow here in upstate New York because the drier air wraps around. And again, that sharp gradient is just in that case a little bit further south and east. So again, think of the direction, the main wind direction from these storms, northeast. That's what a nor'easter is. Just think of a stronger storm. So we've had our fair share of historic nor'easters, especially in the last several years. March 2017 snowstorm, that was about a year before I moved here, but I was in the Hudson Valley for that storm, still had quite a bit of snow there as well. And then, of course, the 2020 snowstorm, which I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in a few minutes. So a little bit about and this is where it gets a little bit more scientific. So a little bit about the dynamics of the storm. So what we a lot of times look at are what are called upper air level patterns. So basically not just what's happening at the surface, what's happening way, way aloft in the atmosphere. And a lot of times what you'll get is a ridge or kind of a surge of warmer air across the west. And when you have a ridge across the west, it's kind of like a wave pattern. So a ridge across the west, you're going to get what's called a trough in the east. And that's what this type of setup when we had it with this storm. With troughs, you get colder air that filters into the region. And if you get the dynamics perfectly, something what's called the right entrance region of the jet and the left exit. So if you're in those particular regions, you can get more of an explosive scenario where you have storms develop. And that's kind of where we were in this particular scenario here. And then you also need a kind of another source of lift with a temperature gradient. So in this case, you can kind of see, it might be kind of hard to see in the back, but you see these red dashed lines and the blue. I'll loop one more time. There we go. So that where the gradient sets up, that's when you get what's called frontogenesis that develops. And frontogenesis is where basically where you have a kind of a pseudo-frontal boundary that will develop and create an extra source of lift and enhance precipitation. So that's exactly what we saw with this system. We had a band of frontogenesis that kind of developed really across northeast PA and the southern tier of New York. And that's what this kind of highlights. So you have these different, these lines here that show, and once they're tighter, you get the stronger band of frontogenesis. And notice it's really right across our area where the lines are at the tightest point. So isobars are lines of equal pressure. So they're very similar to isobars, but it's not referring to pressure there.
What data do you use to draw the line?
I'm sorry, say that again?
What data do you use to draw the line if you don't use no pressure?
Well, it's based on the layer between 800 and 750 millibars. Mark, do you want to kind of chime in a little more on that?
So frontogenesis, number one, is the formation of a front, of a difference, a gradient of temperature. And you can see that here in the shading right there. And then the other one, this is getting super technical.
Should I go back a slide?
Equivalent potential, what's that?
Want to go back a slide or no?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay. So yeah, here's the jet. We're the left exit region of this jet. That right here is the jet and the jet stream. And we look at the left exit region of the jet for additional forced lift for this storm. Okay, next. And then here you have, why this is important is because right here is the freezing line at 850 millibars. That's just a few thousand feet up. And what this is showing is you have the surge of warm air trying to go over the cold air.
Sorry.
And then, of course, it's too cold by the time it gets here. And so everything precipitation-wise turns into snow. Okay, and then next slide. And then so here you have frontogenesis, and the other one is equivalent, what the heck is this? Equivalent potential vorticity.
Yeah, the vorticity.
Thank you. This is super technical. But, yeah, so it's, I don't even know how much I want to get into the weeds on this.
I mean, you have it overlapping here where you have the
Yeah.
stronger frontogenesis. And the vorticity is just think of it as spin in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
That's more of the simple terms.
And this right here is a lower level, like a few thousand feet up. This is up to 700 millibars, so that's more like 10-ish, approaching 10,000 feet, not quite. And so what this is showing is you have a lot of lift and frontal formation stacking at multiple levels. And so as you'll see in the slide coming up here, you'll see what that does as far as moisture and where the saturation is, what temperature that's occurring.
So this is actually a model sounding. So let me actually go back and explain what a sounding is. So a sounding is basically a measurement of different parameters of the atmosphere. So wind speed, temperature, dew point, and things like that. So
All the way up through.
Yeah, all the way
Yeah.
through. So
5,000, 10,000.
So this is the surface down here.
15,000, 20,000.
And these are actually drawn up from weather balloons. So this is a modeled sounding, but this is kind of a fair representation of what it was like at that point. The exact observations were from like weather balloons and things like that. But during the December 2020 snowstorm, you can see, so this line right here on the right is your temperature line, and then the one to the left is your dew point. When they're tight together, that indicates a very moist atmosphere. And you can see they're pretty tight together, pretty far up into the atmosphere. So it indicates plenty of moisture. And then you see this yellow line here where I have the laser pointed. So that's
Yeah, minus 12 to minus 18 Celsius up in the atmosphere.
and that's what's called
10
the
to
dendritic
15,000 feet.
growth zone. So that's where your snowflakes will grow. So you want a deeper layer in the dendritic growth zone for more snowflake generation. And that's what we had in this case, where we had pretty heavy snow.
And by dendritic growth, we mean, because when you have snowflakes form, depending on there's many ways for a forecast to go wrong, for one thing. It's hard enough to say, okay, is it going to snow or not? But if we know it's going to snow, okay, well, what temperature is that snow forming at? Because if it's a certain temperature, you'll have needles, which don't stack up a whole lot. If it's too warm, you even have wet snow, which just, there's a lot of, like you get like 5 inches of precipitation will 1 inch of precipitation will turn into 5 sloppy inches of snow. But if you get it just right, you get what's called dendrites, which is the 6-sided hexagonal shapes, which like to collect and bundle together with lots of air. And so in this situation, and by the way, this line here is lift through the atmosphere. And so when you have lift right through the perfect temperature zone that we had in this storm for hours on end, that's how you get, instead of just, a half inch or a quarter inch per hour, you're surging it to several inches per hour. And yeah, just really racking up where you can get 15, I forget what the snow ratios were on this storm, but
They were very high. I believe it was
15 or 20?
I think it was above 20. It might have been close to 30.
Okay,
20.
20 to 1.
Yeah, so that's the fluff factor.
Yeah, fluff factor. By the way, this is another one of our coworkers.
He's just a random expert.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so this storm had serious fluff factor, big time, because you had all that moisture, you had all that lift, all lined up perfectly for this storm for a long period. Go ahead, Brian.
Cool. And then this is kind of a cross-section view of what we just saw. The one thing I just want to point out here, so this is around 1 a.m. or so on Thursday, the 17th. That was really the peak of the storm. That's when I measured about 5.5 inches of snow 1 hour. And you can see these lines over here. This is where you have the most enhanced, what's called omega or lift, as Mark just mentioned before. And you have the greater lift, and you have more of the heavier snowfall rates going on as well. Let's see if this loop plays.
Yeah, it's going.
A little slow. But the point here is that there was very, very heavy snow. With all these ingredients that came to play, we had about 4 to 6 inches of snow per hour measured at times. From 1 to 2 a.m., I was at the office. I'll explain more about my own personal story in a little bit. But from 1 to 2 a.m., I measured 5.5 inches in 1 hour, which is pretty incredible. And you can see on the right here, this is from the New York State Mesonet. It's the estimated snow depth change I believe it's each hour. So it kind of gives you an indication of the snowfall rates. So this is one of the tricky things. Remember I mentioned where you have these really sharp cutoffs with these storms. And forecasting exactly where all the ingredients are going to come together for such a narrow snow band is challenging. We always had an idea that there was going to be a heavier snow band. Were we expecting 40 inches? No, but we were expecting a heavier snow band to develop. The problem is the placement of that was a little bit off. It was a little bit to the southeast. A little bit to the northwest. We were forecasting a little bit further southeast, as you see in this right graphic here. We were expecting the heavier snowfall rates to occur across the Poconos and southern Catskills and then into central Pennsylvania. What happened, though, is that that band set up a little bit further northwest, and you had all the better parameters situated further northwest. So therefore, those heavier snowfall amounts kind of occurred right across the Binghamton area. Further south and east, still got plenty of snow. Got about a foot of snow, but still not the historic numbers that occurred around here. So most of these pictures, if not all of them, are taken by myself. So just a little bit of a personal story. So I was at the office for this event. I was supposed to be off. I actually volunteered to be an extra person on the midnight shift. And little did I know I was volunteering to be an extra person on the midnight shift and day shift. Because what happened was we couldn't get out and the day shift couldn't get in. So the midnight shift folks, myself and two other colleagues, were kind of manning the office from 11 p.m. on the 16th until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the 17th. And about every hour or so, I had to go outside and clear the satellite dish. We have a satellite dish right by the parking lot. Because what happened was we were losing signal and we couldn't get the satellite data and everything like that, and all of our products wouldn't be able to come out and everything like that. So I had to clear out the satellite dish with a shovel every single hour. So those are my footsteps from the office. I couldn't find my snow pants ahead of this event, so I was actually just wearing jeans. I was pretty wet. And here I am in the right by the satellite dish, just taking a couple of pictures as well. Of course, you have to grab some pictures. So with this, snowplows could not keep up. So that was the problem. These snowfall rates, 5 to 6 inches per hour, can cause problems where the snowplows cannot keep up with plowing. And some plows even got stuck. There was a plow right outside our office that got stuck, an airport plow. So some more pictures. On the right here, this is our technician van that we have. It's a pretty large vehicle, and you can see how quickly it's getting buried under the snow. And I was probably taken around 2 or 3 a.m. during the peak of the storm. It looks like blizzard conditions. Believe it or not, it was actually not very windy with this storm. So it was really snowing that heavily, where it was near whiteout conditions without the wind. And this is that next morning, that picture I took of the office. One thing that we always joke about, those that were at the office, that we wanted to get a picture of us in the snow to kind of get a perspective. It got so busy that we just kind of got sidetracked, and by the end of the day, we just wanted to go home, so we kind of forgot about it. So that's the one thing I regret with this. These are all pictures of the office, but there's no humans in the picture. It's kind of hard to see. I mean, it looks like a lot of snow, but it doesn't look like 40 inches. But it is 40 inches of snow. That's just another angle right there. And that's the pathway into our front entrance. That's my car. So, funny story. So I bought a new car September 2020. I wanted something that had all-wheel drive, and I was driving a smaller car that had two-wheel drive. Good thing I bought the all-wheel drive vehicle, because I would have been stuck in the snow going to work that night. And this is an SUV, and it's pretty buried. All you can see is the side mirror right there. Right down the road from the office, there's a sports complex and an inflatable dome, and that collapsed during the storm. The heavy snow, even though it was not a very dense, not a very wet snow, just the pure amount of snow caused a lot of weight on roofs and buildings. And of course, an inflatable building like that is extra prone to collapsing, and that's exactly what happened. And also power outages. There were power outages as well from this event. Again, it wasn't really that windy, and it was not a very heavy, wet snow. This was very different from the event that we just had in April. Back in April, it was a heavy, wet, gloppy snow and those kind of accumulated on the trees and power lines and everything like that. This was a little different, but it was just a lot of snow. One of our coworkers took this picture. There he is. So that's before, that's after shoveling. Doesn't look very happy. Another one of our coworkers who I believe he lives pretty close to the office, but this was from his point of view, from his house.
These were all the coworkers laughing at home while Brian was at the office.
So we have an internal office chat, and the chat blew up during the overnight. It was almost like the daytime. This is a loop. Let's see if it works.
I sure hope so. It's a rather large file. Maybe that's why
guess
it's
I have to
hanging
open
up.
it.
You have to click play yet.
No, it's opening up on a separate window here. Hold on. Wants me to update the browser.
Oh, no.
Can I just play it in the?
Yeah, let's try that.
Ah,
I think you clicked the back arrow. You missed the play button.
it's hard because I can't see what.
Okay, it looks
It's a
like
different.
Forward and backward arrows next to the play button.
Oh,
Right now you're on the back arrow.
yeah, you're going back.
Shoot.
Let me see.
Sorry.
We need to get this to play because this is a pretty good video. So if not, I can probably find it on YouTube.
Can you see the mouse, Brian?
No.
So,
See, it's opening up a separate window here, and it's. Hold on. Give me 1 second here. Just going to search it on YouTube.
Well, hopefully.
YouTube doesn't want to open. Oh, you don't have Chrome.
We're close a couple of times. All right, now this is where you hit the back arrow a couple of times and you got to.
All right, so let's do it this way. It's not going to work either.
I'll tell you when you're on it.
All right, let's do it that way.
I don't see any mouse right now, though.
Now do you see
there
it?
is up there. Okay.
slow, Brian.
All right.
All right. Okay. Left, left, left. Left, left, left. A little more. Keep going. A little more. Oh, hopefully that's it.
No, that's the back arrow.
Oh, that's not. Is this just?
Oh, so
This might be just a screen capture or something.
Yeah. All right.
Just try clicking in the middle of the screen.
Okay. It was linked.
It's linked, but it's not
actually
opening
linked.
up on.
Oh, it's,
I'm not sure why you're not.
yeah, usually it just pops up.
You have Chrome. Let me do it this way. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
YouTube. All right, now I'm on YouTube. Now I need to find it. Do you know like Ron Murphy's YouTube account?
Don't. But you know what? Let's copy the address.
Oh,
It pops
there
up.
we go. So,
It was linked. So,
actually, let me just Google
okay.
time lapses.
Yeah, that's probably it is.
Oh, now I lost it again.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Minimize that. All right.
Yeah.
Ron Murphy. I don't know if this is going to work. I'm just guessing here. Oh,
Yeah,
this is his account.
that's one of them.
Okay, we're getting somewhere.
I think it was actually
Is
just
that
sitting
what
right
was
there.
it?
Just click right
Let's
on
click
it.
this one.
Yep.
All right, now. All right,
So why?
now let me drag it. I have to drag it over.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right, finally.
Yeah, we got it. All right, good.
Playing? Yes. was worth the wait to watch this.
So how long is real time for this 2.5 minutes?
He has a timestamp on the bottom left.
See the minute flying by there? And there's more than one time lapse here.
It really starts to pick up right now.
Whoa!
Like
Told you it's worth the wait.
Like a marshmallow in the microwave. So this guy's one of our coworkers, and he's known for his time lapses, and it's shown up on national networks before.
He's the IT man, so that's fine.
There goes the camera.
I like the temperature.
Yeah.
You can see the trees all get weighed down too.
The deck is raising.
So this is 10 p.m. right now?
Mm-hmm.
And the worst part of the storm is 1 a.m. until about 4 or 5 a.m.
That wasn't even worth it.
So,
10 p.m. there. 11. Here comes the big stuff.
Yep.
All right.
All right, glad we finally got that to work. Now we're going to get an ad to get rid of this.
Towards the end, it was going down. Is that kind of collapsing?
yeah,
under
so
its
what
own weight?
happens is those dendrites that you're talking about, the snowflakes, is fluffy. There's a lot of air in between. And as they pile up, the weight, compaction, and it starts to compact. So if you don't measure snow right away and you measure the next morning, you'll actually have a lower measurement a lot of times than what actually fell. So,
Yeah, a day later, I mean, it wasn't warm out, but a day later, we almost cut the snow depth in half. It just all compressed. It was very fluffy snow. So we have an event summary on our website that you can always go to. Let's see
Yeah,
if it'll-
I'm going to show you, because that address is pretty hard to remember. If you just remember weather.gov, that's how you get to all of our information, including this. So you just click on Central New York, that takes you right to our page. And then if you go to past weather, you will find,
It's weather events. A little down, a little further,
sorry, hard for me to see.
a little more. Good, good.
Past weather events. And so whether it's this storm or any other of our plenty of noteworthy things, you'll find them here. And including our storm right there. And so that this has the whole rundown on the details of the storm, radar imagery, satellite, some of the technical stuff, meteorology, and some of the photos, some of what you saw in this presentation. So you can always find that there or any of our other storms.
Want to go back to slides? I think it's. You have to just minimize it, I guess. There we go. Now it won't. All these technical things. There we go.
Okay, all right.
All right, part two.
Cool. Part two. Here we go. Thanks, Brian. All right, so I'm going to talk to you pretty quickly through about what we're looking for this winter. This was another memorable storm of ours, March of 2017, and that was my younger daughter. Very, very happy on that day, not having any school. So the official outlook came out in late October, but we can dial down to some details as far as what it means for us locally, how to interpret what the actual forecast says. And let me just say, this is way different from a normal forecast Normal forecast, we say stuff like 54, it's going to rain, it's not going to rain. Whereas a seasonal forecast, it's like an average, an average of 3 months. And so it's like, if you say near average, it's like, oh, we're just going to have a near average winter. And then you get a cold snap and you're like, I thought it was supposed to be near average. But remember, cold, warm, put it all in the blender and it's near average, right? Every winter has its swings. And there's no reason to expect that this one won't be any different in that regard. Heck, even this month, right? 11 days ago it was 80 degrees in Syracuse. Where are we now? We are in lake effect snow and cold air. And, temperatures they're going to go back and forth. And as those last couple of storms that we just reviewed, for when it comes to precipitation forecasts, all it takes is one storm. If you're in the correct county for that storm, your entire season got redefined by that one storm. Okay, so point number 1 is third consecutive La Nina. La Nina winter, that is. El Nino, La Nina, it's a term you've heard probably tossed around. It's a naturally occurring cycle. It just goes back and forth. And what that is you see this here, this blue shade in the equatorial Pacific. That is colder than average water, colder than normal water. Right there. The presence of that is La Nina. The opposite of that is El Nino, when you have warmer than average water over the equatorial Pacific. Notice also we have some warmer than average water, northern Pacific, northern Atlantic, and that has some impacts as well. But as far as El Nino, La Nina, this is why it is called, this is why we say it's going to be a La Nina winter. All the different sensors, they're all colder than average. These are all sensors over the equator, Pacific, and they're all in the moderate range of below normal. So why do we care about that, right? That's what you may be saying, because it has worldwide impacts on the weather patterns when you have large chunks of the Pacific colder than average. And so these right here, these are charts, forecasts of what are the probabilities of maintaining La Nina. Of course, right now, these are 3-month groupings, a moving window of 3-month groupings. Here's September, October, November, December, November, December, January, and so forth. And so these blue bars is, 100% chance of La Nina right now. Duh. We can measure it, right? So that's not really a forecast. But looking ahead, this is what we're actually forecasting. Now you go to the winter months, December, January, February, and we're like 75% chance of still La Nina. Now as you get into spring, now things get more muddled, all right? By the time you get to February, March, April, where the odds of a La Nina are kind of there, but it's even greater odds that we're going to be more of a neutral phase somewhere in between. And that's what we'll have by next spring too. And this right here, again, observed all the different models, what they're forecasting, and you can see that the jumble of models are all trying to drag us up more towards a neutral state. So here is why it matters to us, because here's the typical pattern for a La Nina in the winter. What you get is this big ridge over the Pacific. It dives over the over the northern plains and then down into the Ohio Valley, and then it kinks back up again right over the northeast. And so that puts us right in the storm track, the primary storm track. And so we're going to be flip-flopping a lot. We're going to have a lot of variety to our weather. Notice that in a typical La Nina, you have some parts of the country where it's like, you can be more solid about what the weather's going to be, or up in Canada too. But for us, we're just kind of in this neutral zone where it could go either way. So that's what the typical La Nina looks like and the current conditions. How about the past? Let's look to the past. Take the current conditions, what the Pacific looks like right now, and what these other oscillations that we look at. And if you our winter program leader, his name's Mike Murphy, he took the current conditions and tried to find all the winters that looked the most similar, and he came up with these what are called analogs. They are the best matches for our current situation. And notice the last 2 winters are right in there. Because this is the third consecutive. A lot of these winters you're looking at here were back-to-back La Niñas or even third La Niñas, which is the situation we are in right now. So take all of that and average just those winters, not all winters overall, but just these better match winters, and this is what the past would suggest. The past for those winters favor that for those winters, above average temperatures occurred throughout the eastern U.S. for the month of November. But remember, 80 degrees 11 days ago, and now we're cold, and we might kink back maybe closer to average by the end of the month. And so you put that all together, and sure, maybe it's a degree or two above average overall. But you're still going to have cold snaps, and that's true of any of these months. So the analog suggests that, and then looking at the past winters, that starts to break up a little bit, just barely above when you take the averages. You get some below average in the upper Midwest there. And then for precipitation, that's what we're looking at here. The below average precipitation in the southeast, otherwise it's pretty muddled. And then December, stronger below average precipitation in the southeast to mid-Atlantic. For us, it's more muddled, but you can see a little bit of above average there on the north side of the Ohio Valley. Now we're going to go into January and February. Again, this is looking at the past. Put all those winters together. What do you have? Right darn near the middle for January. What happens in January? It's cold. So, you know, if you have temperatures that average right around normal, that's cold. You can expect cold temperatures. Yeah, you got a question?
What are those subdivisions within each state represent?
Oh, these subdivisions. They're climate divisions. You know, what's NCEI stand for? I forget. National
Center
Climatic
for Environmental Information.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah, we have some folks at the national level that look at these climate divisions and measure. You know, it's how they sort their information.
Do you ever plant like flowers and they say it's in certain zones and things like that? Well, these are specific climate zones that take into effect like temperature, precipitation, and all that, and they break those zones up based on the type of climate that may occur in those zones. So each zone in that within a particular border has a similar climate. That's what it has.
Kind of at the confluence of three zones, I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, and our winter weather program leader, he's able to go dig into the data broken out into these climate divisions and get the big picture of, you know, he's able to compute all of this for those specific winters. So that's January. February, notice what happens here. Above average temperatures really start to show up in the southeast. And we're in that color too, but remind you that these colors are not that extreme. You know, you're talking a half degree to around a degree above average overall. But again, that's overall. You're going to have swings. All right, now let's look at the precipitation. January, barely. I mean, yes, you have some below average when you look at past winters, but by a smidge. And if you have, say, you know, it's only 20 degrees out and you're getting precipitation, sure, there's not a lot of water in it, but it's still very fluffy. You know, you're going to get snow out of that. And then February, here you have the Ohio Valley showing up with some above average precipitation. In the south, again, below average, and then we're kind of near. We're pretty close to average on that one. So take the winter months together, the 3-month period, December, January, February, and you have a typical La Nina pattern. Not surprising, because those are the winters that we averaged, right? You have the colder temperatures in the Rockies and in the upper Midwest, the above average in the southeast, and us just kind of on the cusp of that. You have the Ohio Valley above average precipitation. Oops. But otherwise, here's what's really typical of La Nina. The south is dry, the south is warm. All right, and I'll show you on the official outlook, that's what is behind the official outlook. Just a reminder, this is the average. You take the last 30 years, well, at least 1991 to 2020. Those 30 years averaged together, this is an average snowfall. For the area, and we have tons of variety. You know, some of our valleys are only getting 35, 40 inches of snow, but you get up to Whitney Point and it's 70 or 80 inches. At the airport, it's 85 inches. And then here you have the Tug Hill Plateau getting 150 plus any winter, average winter. And then the proximity to Lake Ontario gets Syracuse all this bonus stuff here too, with some triple-digit snows. Okay, we're not going to go too much into this other than that these are these analog years again, okay? Take the analog years, and here's the total snowfall amounts, and the key point is whatever the precipitation, whether it's somewhere near average or whatever, when you add it to actual inches of snow, highly variable, tons of variety. And so when I say we don't know what's going to happen, I mean it. And it would be a disservice for me to stand up here and say, oh, yeah, it's going to be above average on the, false confidence that we don't have. We don't have. The data shows that. I mean, look at this.
Last April was an outlier.
What's that?
Last April was an outlier.
Oh, the single storm. Oh, yep, for sure. And then if you look at these seasonal totals here, check this out. Any of you remember the winter of 2011, 2012 when we were 2 weeks straight of record temperatures in March and everything started growing and it was like in the 70s? Everything started growing, and then, of course, the natural frosts of April still happened, and they killed everything because everything had started growing. It was a bad crop year as far as fruits go because of that. So that was only 43.5 inches of snow that year. Another La Nina winter. But look what happened the year prior, 117. Similar setup, but huge variety in the outcome. All right, so that's the past, the present. How about looking into the actual future as far as what the modeling suggests? When you look at the long-term models, oh, look at this, same patterns. It's cold in Canada, of course, we knew that, right? But it's colder than even their average is what's being suggested. High probability of colder than their average in Canada. High probability of warm air in Texas, not because they're just Texas, but because that's actually even warmer than their average. And there you have, again, you get to the Ohio Valley, Western Great Lakes, a little bit of above average precipitation showing up there. But here's another, key marker of La Nina. Really dry Southern Cal, really dry Texas, really dry Florida. So that's all the data behind what this official outlook, which you've probably seen on Weather Channel or CNN. This is the actual outlook. That's what's all the data behind that. And so you have the more precipitation favoring the western lakes. Us, we're just barely on the edge of that. We're more in the equal chances zone, which is anything could happen. Equal chances of above or below or near. And same temperatures here, same thing. You got the warmer in the south. You got the colder over here. We're just not in one of those parts of the country for this pattern where we can say, oh yeah, it's definitely going to be this. How you read this is like, you're in the shade of green for the precipitation. Oh, okay, that means above average? No, not necessarily. What this means is 35% chance of above, 32% chance of below, 33% chance of near, which is not telling you a whole lot, is it? I mean, that's right, there's just, I wish we could tell you more. Yeah, it would be nice if I could, with confidence tell you what's going to happen, but the data shows, the past, the present, the future, that it really could go any direction. Now, if you live in some other parts of the country, like my mother-in-law up here in Rogers City, Michigan, she has double the chance of above versus below for precipitation. Or, the deep south, Texas. Whether their chances of above normal, of above normal precipitation, only 9, versus the 58% chance of below. So it's like there are parts of the country where you can more count on these forecasts. For us, we're just in the wishy-washy waffle zone. So it's just the way it is. The chances of it being above versus below average temperatures in northern Minnesota, it's definitely leaning on the below. In Florida, it's definitely leaning on the above, not just because it's warm in Florida, but even warmer than their average. So that was a lot of data for me to summarize that we don't know what's going to happen. but it's the truth. And now I hope you can see that. So key point number one, we're still in the La Nina, just like the last 2 winters. Key point number 2, overall temperatures equal, above, near, or below average temperatures. Precipitation, pretty much the same thing. I mean, the math is just slightly favoring the above, but not by much, just by a smidge. And the other key point is that expect a lot of fluctuation because that storm track is right on top of us. All it takes is one storm to define an entire winter if it's like a 40-incher, right, Brian?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. How are we doing on time? I know we've gone.
Yeah, we're almost at. We're good.
Huh? We're okay? Okay. I just want to show you really quick some of the things where the information you can get. You may have even seen a couple of these go out, snow squall alerts and stuff. Protection of life and property, it's in our mission for the National Weather Service. That's why we are there. And also decision support, which is helping everybody make smart decisions, whether it's the public on the roads or schools trying to decide whether or not to close, or snowplows or whatever operations. Again, just remember weather.gov, because if you go to weather.gov, that takes you a U.S. map. You just click on us, and then you're there. For the winter, these are the 2 most important icons to look for. Snowflakes and also this person briefing, because that's where you get the information when there's a storm coming. Now, if you click on the map, you'll get your forecast and all that details and all that. Or you can put your zip code up here, or city, or whatever, hit go, you'll get the detailed forecast. Partly cloudy, mostly cloudy, chance of snow, all that. But when there is a storm, those are the 2 icons you want to look for as far as getting some really good information, not just a single map. You know, there's the expected snowfall, but there's also, well, the high end and the low end, because it's a probability forecast. It's not just a single number. And if you want more of a statewide picture, you can go to, again, weather.gov. If you go to Albany's page, you can get the whole state. Whereas if you go to weather.gov and then click on us, you'll get the single map here. This is via that snowflakes, by the way, the icon. You click on the icon snowflake and it'll take you there. There's this thing called the Winter Storm Severity Index, WSSI, because, you know, there's a storm coming. How bad is it going to be? How do you describe that? Is it going to be minor? Is it going to be major? Widespread? You know, like how bad is it going to be? Because some storms, they only have 2 inches of snow, but there's like freezing rain in there too. It makes it worse. Or there's a lot of wind, or there's no wind. How do you put it all together? All those factors. This right here, as I actually made this a couple days ago. This was what the Winter Storm Severity Index was showing for this lake effect event. And so this is kind of more of a descriptor of, you know, is it minor, is it moderate, major, or extreme? And you break up the storm into different components. It's not just the amount of snow, right? What if there's wind, blowing snow? What if temperatures are at 40 degrees and suddenly dive down to 20 degrees with wet roads? Flash freeze. Ground blizzard. You only need snow for that. You just need snow on the ground. You don't need new snow. Snow load, which is how heavy is the snow? Is it going to crumple a structure like it did in December 2020? And this right here showed, you know, potential for major impacts in Buffalo. By the way, there has been a structure roof collapse, I believe, in Hamburg. That's what I heard.
Oh.
Yeah. Also, unfortunately, and this is, you know, winter storms are kind of a dangerous thing. There were 2 fatalities from shoveling snow in Erie County. So, I mean, this can be pretty serious. Heart attack snow, you know. All right, but, so we put out an advisory if we get this much snow. We put out a warning if we get this much snow. Well, what about a half inch of snow that comes in 15 minutes? We don't have an advisory for that, right? We don't have a warning for that. Well, now we do. We have what's called snow squall warnings. We've been doing these for a few years now. Because this does not take much snow. It just, when it comes down all at once, and you can't see more than, you know, like 100 yards in front of you, you have no idea that the pile up is in front of you, and then next thing you know, you run into it. So this is, you know, something we put a little more focus on lately. It is high impact. You get these 100-car pileups. It is a big problem. you get out of your car and you are possibly getting walloped by the next vehicle. So snow squall warnings, they look like severe thunderstorm warnings.
So you're saying don't get out of your car if you think you're in a pile-up.
If you are in a pileup, if you can leave your car, get way away from the car.
Just wait.
But if you're going to stay in your car and you don't feel like you can get out safely, stay in your car, put the seatbelt on, and leave that. Yes. What you don't want to do is just kind of get out the car and just kind of stand next to it and like, oh, this is neat, because you're setting yourself up. You need to get away from the scene. Okay, but yeah, this looks like severe thunderstorm warning, right? We draw an area of impact, and the thing that also I just want to point this out. Look how little snow this was in Pennsylvania. This might have been one of the I-80 ones, I think. But here's what a snow squall will look like on radar. You know, to us it looks like, you know, if in the summertime this looks like just showers, but this is the wintertime equivalent of a summer downpour with wind. And it's, it can be pretty serious. So that's why we put out those snow squall warnings.
We actually just issued one this evening. It was for northeast Pennsylvania, Wyoming Valley.
Yep.
Some
And
yesterday,
we had
too.
a couple yesterday,
Yep.
too, including Broome County.
Yep.
Although by the time it actually reached the Metro Valley, it did kind of
It fell apart a bit.
peter out a little bit. But I know up here it was pretty good. Right, Mike? All right. Also, I don't want to get too much into this. I know we're going long here. But I just want to, if there's anything I want to stress to you, a snowfall forecast is never just a number. When there's a storm coming, everybody wants to know how much is going to fall, and that first snowfall map comes out, and it's like, oh, okay, we're going to get that much. If that's the one that you commit to memory, it's just not, it's not going to happen that way, because the forecast continues to get updated as the storm gets closer and closer and closer. Monitor it for changes, because it's going to change. It should change, right? If we have the latest data, we have more information, we should be changing that forecast, and we will. But it is not just a number. It's not just how much is going to fall, but if you're a snowplow operator, you just want to know, hey, is it going to be enough to plow or not? I don't care how many total. I just want to know, 2 inches or more, what's the chances of getting that? So you can get that. Again, you click on those snowflakes on their page, and it takes you to this page where you can say, hey, what's the chance I'm getting a foot of snow? What's the chance I'm just getting an inch of snow? Also, you will see that it's not just a single map. It is, you're going to at least get this much no matter what. But it could be this much if everything goes off the rails and everything lines up perfectly. There is potential for there to be, there's a high end, a reasonable high end, a reasonable low end, and then the most likely. So yeah, all three of those. We issue outlooks as the storms are approaching, but it's still a ways away. At least 30% confident of significant winter weather. Watches, we're at least 50%. And then once we get into the warning phase, which is the day of or the day right before, threat to life and property, that's when we do winter storm warning. If it's not so much a threat to life and property, but it's definitely going to still cause some travel impacts and stuff like that, we'll put out an advisory for roughly 3 or 4 inches or more of snow. Once you get 7+, that's when we put out the warnings. The other icon, the red icon, that's where we get into the detailed briefings. If you want more than just, hey, what's my forecast say, but you actually want to know all the details of the storm, we put out these briefings, either one page if it's a small event or a simple event, or it's many, many pages of information. And again, you will find that by going to our website and clicking on that red icon, and it takes you to this page. This will be an open book. If there is a briefing, it's a closed book. If there is no briefing, and then again, there's those snowflakes. You just click on those snowflakes and get a lot more than just a snowfall map. All right, how about snowfall rates? Inches per hour. That's important, right? Where's the heaviest banding going to be? Or is it going to be a dry, fluffy snow over here, or is it going to be a wet, heavy, sloppy snow down this way? So those are in our briefings too. Timing maps. When's the snow going to change to freezing rain? Or when's the accumulating snow going to end? These are the maps you'll see in our briefings. And with that, that should do it, right? Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Brian and And Mark, for your presentation, it's been great. I know we've got some questions on the chat, but do we have any questions here locally? Or should we go to the chat? All right, we're going to hand this over to Jeremy because we've had somewhere between 20 and 25 people on the chat here, including people from outside of the area.
All right, so first question comes from Mike, who is actually on our board. And he asks, the maps you showed a pattern for extreme drought in the southwest and southeast. And should we expect horrible fire seasons in those areas?
Sure. Actually, Mike happens to be here. Mike, he's one of our coworkers, and also me. We're actually incident meteorologists. We get dispatched to these wildfires occasionally, a couple times a year or something like that. And yeah, that is something we're going to have to watch for because, I mean, it is nice that California has been getting a bunch of much needed precipitation, but yeah, Southern California, they're going to be pretty dry this winter. The odds are because of the La Nina. And Florida, sometimes they'll get a spring fire season if they don't get the rain they need. So it is something, I'm not saying it's likely, but it wouldn't be surprising, that's for sure.
All right, and second question. For these big snowstorms that drop a ton of snow, how does a person get up if they fall in?
Well, I can say from personal experience, one of the times when I was cleaning off the satellite dish, there's a little ditch right in front of the satellite dish. I underestimated where it was, and I face planted right in the snow. I don't know good advice how to get up.
My advice is, honestly, just don't be alone. That's my advice. Don't go out alone. Be there with somebody so that if, something happens that you weren't planning on, you'll have help. I will say also, as far as falling in, we already told this story. Jumping off the trampoline right into the cotton candy of snow. It was pretty awesome. It was fun.
Actually, it does sort of indicate that, reminds me that, especially, again, you live in this area or anywhere that gets any kind of reasonable snow, to have a sort of a go kit, with a blanket, some food, even if you with a cell phone, like a cell phone charger, available. So if you get stuck in, because I remember last winter, there was that really that big storm that hit down to Washington D.C. and people were stuck for 12, 15 hours. So being prepared for that, it really, it's obviously to your advantage, but it makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder. I mean, that is something we at the Weather Service likes to stress too, is if you need help because of a weather-related reason, you will not be the only one. Chances are a lot of people need help at the same time. And so it may take a lot of time till you get that help, and you better have with you whatever you need, water, food, anything that you might need to get through the next several hours.
That's also very dependent on where you are in the country, too. I mean, if you're in the south, an inch or two of snow can cause a lot of problems. Fortunately, here we're better equipped for the snow, but still, you definitely want to be prepared.
I actually recall soon after I got out of college, I ended up flying down to Dallas, Texas for a job interview. And they had a bit of an ice storm there. They do not know how to drive in ice down there. I ultimately decided to take a job in Boston, and so that worked out well. We do have another question here on the chat, and then we'll come back here. So get your questions pulled together.
All right, again, from Mike, asking how many people work at the local National Weather Service?
So we have, I believe, about 22 or 23, lower 20s in terms of how many people work, but it's a combination of different positions. So we have lead forecasters, we have meteorologists, we also have technicians that repair the radar, repair all the other automated stations that sometimes go down. We have a local information technology officer. Actually, you saw the picture of him earlier. in the snow, Ron Murphy. So we have many different positions within our office, but I think a total of about 20-something people.
I do want to stress we are 24/7 like the weather.
Yes. So
And there's at least 2 of us there around the clock, and sometimes more, certainly Monday through Friday, but also for any weather event. And that's just us. There's a Weather Service office in State College. There's a Weather Service office in Buffalo, Albany, Long Island. It's about 120-ish offices across the country.
Any other questions here locally? Oh, yeah, we do. We're going to take the mic over here.
When you said that, when you're watching these forecasts of what's going to happen, just keep watching them because they're going to change. It reminds me a bit of watching what hurricanes are doing, like the cone of improbability or the probability cone, right? And instead of a big blob, they've lately been unbundling it and showing you the paths that a bunch of various different models are suggesting. Now, we know that computers can't model weather because there's too many molecules interacting with each other. But are you averaging a bunch of models to give us the projections like the hurricane folks do?
There are certain situations where we know models handle this better or models handle that better, just given the situation. But when you see the probability forecasts, where we say the high end, the low end, and what's in the middle is our best guess based on our local knowledge, pattern recognition, and, yes, what the computer models are saying too. But then when you have this high end forecast, low end forecast, it incorporates all the different, we call it ensembles, which is all the different models and iterations of the models, even some of the past models still holding on to some of that, putting it all together in a blender.
So some kind of weighted average.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it's not usually just whatever the middle is the best guess. We do tilt it one way or the other depending on the situation.
Yeah, there are some models that do better in certain scenarios. There's a particular model that does better for lake effect snow. So sometimes we'll more heavily rely on those models depending on the scenario.
Actually, I have a question for you.
So my question is, again, Kopernik is an educational facility, and among the things we do is we, give our young visitors an opportunity to consider a career. So I apologize, I was out actually working on the scopes during part of your presentation, but can you talk a little bit about where do you go to school to become a meteorologist? And maybe also what got you particularly interested in becoming a meteorologist?
Sure. I'll start because I'm actually the student volunteer program leader at our office, and I believe I'm still the youngest in the office too. I went to school at Stony Brook University, that's on Long Island, but there's plenty of schools across the whole country that offer meteorology and other majors very similar to meteorology. My interest in weather actually started with the 2004 hurricane season. 2004 hurricane season, for those who don't remember or are too young, 2004 hurricane season was a very, very active season, and I was pretty much glued to the Weather Channel and watching all the coverage and everything. And then 2005 hurricane season was just as busy, if not busier. Yep, that was Katrina in 2005. So those particular seasons really kind of sparked my interest in pursuing it as a career. I was always interested in the weather, but in terms of seriously interested, I was in 6th grade at that point, so I was pretty young, but a lot of people want to be a meteorologist from like you're 5 or 6 years old, so I'm actually kind of a relatively late bloomer compared to others.
As for me, yeah, I was the kind that never not wanted to be a meteorologist, as long as I could remember. And speaking of that 2004 season, my dad was in the eye of Hurricane Charlie in Port Charlotte. He couldn't evacuate because he and my stepmom, they ran a senior center and they could not abandon the seniors, right? So they had to stay back and try to hold down the fort. And predictably, I guess you could say, suddenly it got calm out and got all bright. And what do you think some of the people there were saying when that happened? Oh, it's over. And my dad had to sort of break it to them and say, actually, this is the eye. And so he ran out and tried to clear a bunch of stuff before it blew back at them. That was quite an experience for him. For me, yeah, since kindergarten, I knew I wanted to be a meteorologist. I went to the University of Michigan. I got a bachelor degree, Bachelor of Science. And you've got a bachelor's?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah.
So some of us have a master's degree. You do not need a master's degree to be
Yeah.
a meteorologist. It helps, but it's
Yeah,
but
I'd
it's
say-
about half and half in our office.
Yeah, a good number get master's degrees in order to get into the weather service. But the thing that can substitute for a master's degree is experience, and that's something we both had in the private sector. I was in I had private sector experience of 4 years. One other little story is while I was in college, something that confirmed me being a meteorologist is, do you remember what happened in May 31st, 1998, by any chance? Anybody around here remember that? Tornado outbreak, including the one that bounced along the state border? Yeah, it was a pretty gnarly tornado here. But that storm system started off as what's called the derecho, which is a strong squall line of powerful winds, with the storms up in Michigan where I was at the time. Went through it, it roared through at 5 a.m. Every way out of the neighborhood got blocked with fallen trees. I saw colors I've never seen in a storm as far as lightning. There's just weird colors. And it would be like a strobe too, where all of a sudden it's like there's a tree up in the air where I just see an instant, and it's just like, wow. And we had 100-mile-an-hour winds with that storm. And then that set of storms came through over here later that afternoon and evening in the form of tornadoes. So. All right.
Any other questions here? Oh, we're in the back. We're in the back here.
So what causes the colder water currents during a La Nina? Is it with thermohaline circulation and deep water currents, or is it more at the surface?
You can take it.
All right. There is a little bit of a chicken and egg problem here. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Because the trade winds, which blow from, in the tropics, that the weather tends to go from the east to the west. When those trade winds are stronger than normal, they drag the warm water at the top because the sun heats the top layer of the ocean, so the warm water's there. And so that with the stronger trade winds, it slides that warmer water more towards the Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia and all that. And so what replaces it? You can't just remove water and something has to replace it. You get the colder, deeper water to upwell off the shore of South America. And so then you have a big block of colder than average sea surface temperatures for that reason. As far as thermohaline, I don't think it's that. Unlike, what sometimes happens with the Gulf Stream and with the melting of Greenland, that's occurring, there's that concern if that's going to change everything there. In this case, El Nino, La Nina, it is just the trade winds. But why do those trade winds get strong and sometimes go really weak and sometimes even flip around? I don't know. I honestly don't know, but it's not a thermohaline thing.
You have another question from the chat.
What causes ball lightning?
Well, that's an answer. I mean, that's
I honestly don't know.
I don't know much about ball lightning.
I know there's
Ball lightning is still not proven. Ball lightning is still not proven. It's still theory. So there's many people that say that they have observed it, but it has not been actually physically observed on camera or by scientists or anything. So as of right now, it's not disproven, but the understanding of it is still, it's unknown. A lot of people say it looks almost like an orb that comes, even will come across the street or something like that and then explode, is some of the descriptions that people have given when describing it. So yeah, there's really a lot of unknowns there when it comes to ball lightning. So.
Mike,
All right.
rescue.
It's a team effort here. Absolutely, you can really see that. Well, I want to thank you both, all three of you actually, for this fantastic presentation. It's always great to sort of dive deeper into these subjects and learn a little bit more. Also, get a sense of where to find these resources that we can dive deeper. And who knows, maybe there's some young meteorologists here that might come out of this session. I want to thank those watching on the live stream, and also tell you a little bit about a couple things that are coming up. Every Black Friday here we do a program called Black Holes on Black Friday. So we'll be opening up again next Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and hopefully have some clear skies. I won't ask you to provide that, but if it's convenient to do so, that'd be nice. And then also, again, our YouTube channel has really been taking off lately, and we're going to be doing a thing called the Mars occultation. So on December 7th, the moon is going to actually sweep in front of Mars, and so Jeremy, provided it's clear, will get a camera on one of our scopes and be watching for that Mars occultation. So basically, the moon is, if you will, we're going to call it an eclipse, but it's really just getting in front of Mars. So Jeremy will be doing that. And as always, with any of our YouTube streams, they are actually just saved on our YouTube channel. So if you wanted to come back to this, or if, say, maybe you showed up to our live stream 15 minutes late, you can actually catch the first 15 minutes of it by going to that to our channel a little bit later this evening, or at whenever you want. So thank you again. I very appreciate your time and for those here, we have Jupiter in the 6-inch, and we may be able to get our 14-inch telescope going as well. We're working on that as well. So again, for those that are here for the first time, you cannot leave until you look through a telescope. That's the rule. So we invite you to come out, and look forward to seeing you at a future Friday Night Live. Thanks.
Thank you.